Good Sunday morning and welcome to Inside Tennessee, and we begin your Sunday with Don Bosch's favorite graphic that we show up on the screen for you. This is the balance of power in the state legislature, and you can see Republicans hold what's known as a walkout majority, meaning if the Democrats walked out of the state legislature, the Republicans could still do business. Okay, that helps set the table. This morning, we welcome two Democrats from Knoxville who are a part of that minority with us, veterans of the state legislature now, Representative Gloria Johnson and Representative Sam McKenzie. Nice to have you both.
Good morning.
Good to be here.
Don, I tease.
I might suggest it's not a great way to welcome our Democrats in the morning.
It's not great hospitality, you're right. But it's nice to have you here. You're a Democrat. I'm glad you're with us.
Thank you. And one day you'll get to walk that back a little.
We appreciate your prediction. Don Bosch runs his own law firm. Susan Richardson-Williams runs her own PR firm, and she's a Republican.
And she likes the balance of power.
Yes, you do. Yes, you do. Well, we've had Speaker Sexton was on just at the end of the year talking about his priorities for the session. Let's start there with both of you on what you want to do this session, and Representative McKenzie, we'll start with you.
Well, you know, that's a good analogy. When you hear the speaker talk, it's amazing how the conversation just changed. It was first, you know, our children in these failing schools need to have a chance to a choice to upgrade or to go to this private school. Now it's private schools for all, because the numbers say this program is for the rich and almost rich. And so now they've just doubled down and said they don't want any income level. They don't want anything. They want to separate these schools into haves and the have-nots. And that, unfortunately, is going to be a battle. I sit on the Education Committee with Representative Johnson, but that's going to be a big battle. That, to me, is a bridge way too far.
The expansion of the voucher program, even past what it was last session. Representative Johnson, we'll dig into that, but also you were talking big picture budget concerns that you have.
Oh yeah, serious concerns. We've got the Republicans currently sleepwalking us into economic disaster for Tennessee families and societal mayhem. I mean, the reality is we have got about 600,000 to 700,000 Tennesseans without access to affordable health care. With this big ugly bill, there are going to be cuts to TennCare, cuts to SNAP, and cuts to child care. We're already seeing people losing their jobs, all of these things happening. They're going to have to backfill that with the budget. And how can they do that when they're doubling the size of vouchers or giving a tax credit to wealthy parents to subsidize their private school? How do we give hundreds of millions of dollars to schools that have zero accountability?
That's right.
What is up with that? We don't do it in any other part of the budget. You don't have to hire certified teachers. You can teach any curriculum or no curriculum that you want. I mean, it is remarkable to me. And this year, 2025, we are seeing the highest residential electricity bills we've ever seen in Tennessee history. So families have groceries they can't afford. They have electricity they can't afford. They're losing their health care. They can't afford prescriptions. They can't afford doctor's visits. And if your government's not doing something to help, who is going to help? Mm-hmm. And the Republicans are not doing anything. They've caused this. They're certainly not doing anything to help Tennessee families. United Way says that 44 to 50% of Tennessee families with children are food insecure. And Governor Lee refuses the money for 700,000 Tennessee kids for our summer program. Who does that?
There are the big issues that you will face this session. Susan, let's begin with you.
Well, I'll start. One of the things Cameron Sexton, who was on our show, the speaker, talked about was trying to address the teacher shortage. And Gloria, you've been an educator, and so I know this is something that's near and dear to your heart.
Yeah.
What he talked about was allowing people with associate's degrees to teach K through 6, I think. I'm assuming you're probably opposed to that, but if so, how would you addressing this teacher shortage?
And he used about 2,000 teachers short as the reason for this program.
Well, so here's the solution. Why are we short teachers? Because they're not paying them a wage that they can live on. We are talking about people that do one of the most important jobs in this state, and they're making 15% less, 10 to 15% less than they did 10 years ago.
Well, hey, the speaker said that they've increased the pay dramatically and that its starting salary is now around $50,000.
And he did
Well,
say that,
you-
and he wasn't truthful on some of those
You
things.
will hear the speaker say that. That doesn't mean it's true.
Right.
We are 47th in the nation in funding public education. You can't be 47th in the nation and expect to have a stellar school system. We have got to invest in every single classroom. And by draining money out to go to private schools with zero accountability will never be the answers. But you need to give teachers the environment to thrive in.
What would be the salary you think would be acceptable, both of you, for teachers in Tennessee to start at? Representative McKenzie?
Well, to me, you're absolutely right in terms of there needs to be just a step increase to get us in that competitive range. And then you'll have more folks going to UT, going to these other colleges wanting to be. So to me, a $10,000 to $15,000 increase will give them an ability. So understand, these teachers are graduating with student loans. Our housing in East Tennessee has gone up dramatically. As Johnson just said, utility costs. So to me, a $10,000 to $15,000 just step increase for the classroom teachers. We're not talking about administrators, the folks in the rooms making the classroom, and then you could talk about balance.
So Sam, is there a place though for that associate degreed person to teach at the K through 6 level? I know Gloria's shaking me off like a good catcher,
Right.
but Sam, do you think maybe there's a place for that person to teach, whether it's in voc ed, well, and really you don't have that at that level, but in some basic core classes that there might be some competency shown by those
To try to help with the
associate
shortage.
degrees?
Yeah, to me, I think that's a tough one to have someone with just an associate's to say I'm going to come in and give them total autonomy over these 20 to 25, bright and energized young minds. So I just don't think an associate's is enough balance and training for that. Now, what I do like is him paying the student teachers. That
Yes.
piece I like.
Representative Johnson, I just wanted to make sure we get you on the record. What do you think is a fair starting wage for teachers?
Well, I don't know because I'm so far out. I make so little money. I think, I'm thinking. I think it should be somewhere around 55, 60.
15% increase to get to the national average.
Yeah.
Yes.
And the reality is, we need more teachers. We need teachers to stay. We need to encourage them to stay. We need to create the conditions that make people want. I loved my job. There was nothing I loved more than teaching. But it got to where it was impossible to teach the kinds of kids I taught under the guidelines that we were given, not by the school system, but by the state.
We've got to take a quick break on Inside Tennessee. Back with more of our conversation with these two veteran Democrats from Knoxville who are headed to Nashville in the next week. Back with that right after this. Back on Inside Tennessee with two veteran Democrats in the state legislature, Gloria Johnson, Sam McKenzie. We appreciate you both being here. Don?
So to each of you, as John so aptly points out, you are part of the minority, and there's a supermajority over you. I did a little bit of checking. It wasn't that hard, but best I can tell, there's not been a bill that you all, the Democrats, have been able to pass that's been singly sponsored by the Democrats. The Republicans block you, no matter how good of an idea, how good of a thought. So the reality is you have to play defense. Mm-hmm. The Democratic Party, their role for the moment seems to be, how do we stop the worst things from coming down the pike that the Republicans put in front of our state? So Sam, I'm going to ask you, what do you do to try to prevent those things that are really bad overall for both your district and our state? What can you do as a legislator? And Gloria, I'll ask you the same question after Sam answers.
Well, I try my best to get along with all the reps from Middle East and just rural and urban. So just try to have conversations. If you look at the voucher bill, really only 4 to 5 votes would have turned out. I think we were able to have conversations about what does this do to your district, and that's really the conversation.
Some of the rural districts that are governed by Republicans will probably line up much closer to both of you on that issue.
I tell folks all the time that a deeply urban district like mine and a deeply rural district, those are basically the same type of children. They may have different skin colors, but they're issues. And so just to try to have those general conversations about it. So there are some really bad bills coming in terms of this going to do damage to across the state and our image. So just to try to have those conversations as best you can to sway them a little and say this does not make sense for Tennessee.
Is Senator Briggs from the Knox County area an example of that? This Republican who traditionally takes a pretty conservative stance, but he seemed open to listening to the concerns about vouchers and voted against it.
Yeah, actually, he and you have a Rep. Scarborough in Oak Ridge. You know, his predecessor would have voted for it hands down. He came in and made a wise decision to say, in Oak Ridge, Anderson County, Clinton City, it does not make sense. So just to try to reason with a lot of those folks, you know, and Senator Briggs, he also understands that huge tax break that we gave to these businesses is really doing damage. So he's talking about trying to do some things to get our base back up.
So Gloria, what do you do? And you're part of the Tennessee Three, so you're a little more reviled by the other side, I would say. And so what can you do, though, to stop some of the worst
certainly,
things?
you still have to be professional. You still talk to the other side, have those conversations. And you know, sometimes we get them to vote with us. The bad kids, which were the Republicans who voted against vouchers, you know, got punished by having to sit by me or whatever. So, you know, sometimes they vote with us, and you do that. But for me, the main work is working in my community with the groups who care about this legislation. You know, a perfect example was that heinous bill that refuses education to undocumented students, and so the organizing people to show up and fight back and resist this really ugly, hate-filled legislation that only hurts our communities. So in addition to doing the work inside the legislature, I think it's my job as well to let people in the community know and help them organize, understand what's happening so they can show up and push back in ways that they can. Because in that walkout minority, if you want to call it that, we have to have the people engaged. And the majority of the people care about the same things that we care about.
Representative McKenzie, I watched a video that you and John Becker did this time last year, and your concern then was health care. Obviously, it's still a huge concern with all of us, Republicans and Democrats, I think, especially because of what's happened at the federal level. What do you do about it? How do we change that in Tennessee? And I mean, we're way down the totem pole when it comes to health care in the country.
I think it's 43rd on one of the metrics I looked at.
Yeah, it's you know, the number one, I think we're one of 7 states that still hadn't accepted expansion Medicaid.
Yeah.
That's the number one thing. That's our money.
It's billions of dollars.
Billions of dollars that we
paid in. That's what people don't understand.
Our money.
That's right.
And just because, you know, it was named Obamacare, these folks are just scared of it, of these dollars like it has leprosy or something like that. It doesn't make any sense. So number one, that's what we can do. We can accept the full amount of money that's due us as Tennesseans. It's not about the 132 of us. It's about the people that we represent, and we need to do the right thing. The second thing is our repay rates are abysmal in terms of what the hospitals are getting. So it's running the hospitals into the negative. We need some balance in that as well. So those are a couple of things that we can do out the gate to really improve the lives of our citizens.
Do you see any movement at all among the majority to expand Medicaid in Tennessee? I mean, that issue's been
Or to at least take
dropped.
that money back.
Actually, yes. I'll say I've seen not enough, but I've seen 2 to 5 of my colleagues on the Republican side that said it's time to do it. So I don't know.
And they've had family members affected. We have Republican members who have had family members affected, and that's powerful.
And are they rural or are they urban or a mix?
Rural in particular are the ones that I'm thinking of.
Same.
And you know, when we talk about all those uninsured people and then adding more because of the big ugly bill, what is that going to do to our hospitals, especially our rural hospitals?
Which we're
It's going to
losing by the
devastate them. And you know what that means? That means more families that are facing bankruptcy and just upside down incomes because they lose their care, their health care.
Yeah.
We've got to take another quick break. I think that bankruptcy from medical bills remains the number one reason we see families in the country go into bankruptcy. We're back with more of our conversation with both Representative Johnson and Representative McKenzie right after this. We're back on Inside Tennessee previewing the legislature. They're back in session in the coming weeks. Susan?
Well, one of the things that I hear all the time is this nuclear renaissance. You worked in Oak Ridge for a long time and are retired, and the state has gotten involved in the nuclear renaissance. We've actually put a lot of money into it. Is that a priority? Should that be a priority for the legislature? I like both your perspectives.
It absolutely should. President Obama is the one that first said that nuclear energy is green energies, and that was a huge step. And that to me made it a bipartisan effort, and it really is. We can't, the wind doesn't blow enough here, and we don't have, we're heavily shaded to have solar.
Really hydro and coal and gas is what's really supporting our energy.
Gas is not the solution. We're not near any pockets. So this nuclear renaissance is a good thing, and it's going to bring great jobs to East Tennessee.
It's already brought a lot to Oak Ridge, for sure.
Absolutely.
Your perspective on that issue?
Well, I'm certainly not against it. I'm a little skeptical about what it actually, for the cost, what it's going to actually give us back and how much it's going to cover. But I need to see the numbers on that. But the bigger concern is that's at least 7 years off. So as I said, we've got the highest utility prices we've seen in history. What are we going to do now? What are we going to do, folks who can't pay their bills right now? That's down the road. But what can we do right now?
Being from the region, do you have any concerns that TVA may go private? Because obviously some people in the Republicans have, and particularly Trump, have said that may be a good idea. You're from this region. What do you guys think of TVA being sold off privately?
Both our senators and congressmen from that district are opposed to it going private.
Yes, and
I think it's a run.
haven't they changed their minds before?
To me,
they might say they're against it, but they'll vote for it.
Right, and that's. I hope they're not intimidated into voting for it. It will be devastating for our region. Having a public power entity like TVA makes sense, and we're so ingrained right now. TVA controls the lakes and the rivers, the dams. They control people's yards so far up into their bank.
1330 line. That's right.
Everyone knows about that 1330 line. And so to make it private, the decisions would change. Recreation would change.
Right. TVA is a three-headed monster. They do more than energy.
Exactly. They're more than just power. So to me, it's a bad idea. And I get that the CEO of TVA is the most highest paid person in government, but it just makes sense to have them the way they are.
Let's shift to what you want to hear from Governor Bill Lee. He really championed that voucher legislation last session and won on that issue. Representative Johnson, what do you anticipate he's going to be pushing aside from that this session?
My understanding is he wants to double down on vouchers, double it if possible.
20,000 to 40,000 is what I understand.
And I'm hearing about a potential, $4,000 tax credit for wealthy families who already put their kids in private school. So once again, they won't give us the numbers of how many kids were already in private schools, never in public schools. Some journalists and folks have figured it out. It's probably somewhere around 80% plus. So this tells us we are subsidizing private education for the wealthy, and there's zero accountability or transparency on that money. When Bill Lee walks out of the governor's office at the end of his term, we are going to be hard-pressed to balance a budget, and it's all because of his mistakes and his tax breaks for billionaires and corporations, while Tennessee families struggle to meet their bills every month.
Representative McKenzie, your perspective on that question, what you want to hear from the governor, and what's an example of a piece of bipartisan legislation you think can pass in this session?
To me, what makes sense in this session is for us to take care of our mentally ill. I think that is something that we can make a huge step on if this governor would step up. I think he's going to increase it some, but if someone had a broken arm, they feel sorry for them. But something's wrong in the neurons in their brain, and we don't get it. So we're housing them in our prisons. We're transporting them back and forth to Chattanooga, from Johnson City to Chattanooga. That's something that I think is a bipartisan effort that we can make a huge difference this year. I'm hoping the governor would do something. This is his last time at it. You know, he kind of fell into the governor's role because the other two people were arguing with each other so much. I don't think he was the best choice for us, but he's here. We're at the end of it, and I want him to make a difference in the lives of Tennesseans. You know, not just the rich folks who want to get a $7,000 tax break to buy a higher car, but to make a difference in the health and the wealth of our citizens.
Representative McKenzie, Representative Johnson, we appreciate your time. We'll certainly check in with you as the session gets started. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We're back after this with our talk around, or as Dennis Franson would say, what's the gossip?
There's always.
We're back. We're talking about the gossip right now. It's what's the gossip, as Dennis Francis would say.
But we can't talk about this.
No, we can't. But we can talk about your thoughts on the upcoming session. Susan, we'll start with you because your group holds the supermajority.
We're going to put a limit on how many times you can say that on any given show.
They do. I think there are going to be some. We're certainly going to look at education because the speaker has said he's got a couple of big bills on that, and vouchers, to expand vouchers. You've certainly heard what the Democrats said. They're opposed to all of those things. Health care, maybe. Certainly we'll hear about the budget, which obviously they have to pass, the balanced budget. And there's a shortage this year. The revenue is down from what it has been. So everybody out there that's got your hand out and wants stuff, you might pull it back this year.
We've talked a little bit about this in past broadcasts, but Speaker Sexton saying it was like this in the Haslam administration one year where it was a super tight budget. Sometimes that's to the advantage of the executive for that very reason,
no
saying
question.
We can't do anything.
Right.
It's not our fault. Don, what do you expect is coming?
That's right, but guess what? Bill Lee's going to pick up $20,000 more supplements, or wants to, and I actually think that it will have a harder time getting through than it did last time, because now, you think of those rural legislatures, just as Representative McKenzie suggested, they're going to be, wait a minute, we're not going to see anything out of this. We don't have any private schools in our district that our children can go to. They would have to drive 30 or 40 miles to go to one, or worse, they're going to go to some really unsanctioned kind of educational program. So I don't know that that's going to help Governor Lee like it helped Governor Haslam, because he governed as a reasonable, moderate Republican.
Don, you also pushed a lot on the accountability issue for, let's see the test scores. Is the program working? How, in your assessment, has the state done that?
Oh, they haven't. And that's the point. We don't have any metrics to speak of whatsoever how these children did last year. We're getting less. We don't know who they're going to. Gloria suggested that the number of children that may have already been in private school may be north of 80% already. So again, I just don't see where this is making our educational system better. It's hurting us. And we heard we're underpaid. We're 43rd or 44th in education statewide. This is not making us a better place to educate our children.
Susan, let's shift to what will be likely one of the biggest races Knox County will see in the next couple of months, and that's the race for sheriff. 4 candidates in right now. Whose race is it?
Actually, I think, is it 5?
I think there's 5, and that's to be determined. There are a couple of folks that are currently working for the sheriff.
And to be fair, it could grow or shrink based on the next couple of weeks.
But I mean, that's going to be a really interesting race. J.J. Jones, we've talked about many times, has served as sheriff. He ran last time and lost. His people lost in one race. Lee Trammell lost. So I think it'll be interesting to see who the current sheriff actually backs.
It's wide open.
That could be
is.
the difference.
And while we've had in our time certainly some competitive sheriff's races, it's always been between 2 people. This one's a 5-horse race in some ways. Not really sure who comes to it. David Amburn getting in makes it a little more interesting. He's a very known quantity in the department.
Thanks for the perspective. As we head to goodbye, we also want to show you a QR code. You can scan a picture of it and take a survey about your priorities for the next legislative session. We'll see you back here next week on Inside Tennessee.